short girl in the yellow dress handed one of the men her cell phone and asked him to take a picture of the three friends. Mission accomplished, the brunettes followed the hostess to their table with barely a thank you to their liquor-pouring benefactors. At least the blonde gave them each a hug before she trailed along. The decibel level in the bar area fell noticeably in the wake of the girls' departure. The other patrons seemed relieved, but he took it as a signal to leave. En Mott, he walked north toward Houston, forcing himself to adopt a leisurely pace. His car was parked only 10 blocks away, and the girls would need at least an hour for dinner. He had plenty of time. Chapter 2. Somehow Stephanie Hyder always knew that her friendship with Chelsea Hart would lead to a night like this. Since the day Stephanie had been introduced to her second-grade class at Fort Wayne Elementary as the new girl from Miami, the two had been inseparable. By the end of Stephanie's third week, she had earned her first-ever detention after the girls were caught reading Judy Blume's Wifey on the playground. As planned, the girls insisted they'd mistaken the book for the sequel to Blubber, but Chelsea had already earned her reputation with the teacher. Over the course of the intervening years, Stephanie had survived her fair share of Chelsea-induced drama. Chelsea tapping at her window well after curfew, cajoling her to sneak out for a forbidden cigarette. The R-rated games of Truth or Dare that Chelsea invariably initiated at middle school parties. Rocking a sobbing Chelsea to sleep after Duncan Gear snubbed her in the 9th grade, despite the previous weekend's activities in the back seat of his father's SUV. Hitchhiking home from a frat party in Ann Arbor their junior year. Chelsea was trouble, no question. Stephanie's mom lovingly called her the notorious BIC, short for Bad Influence Chelsea. But she had a spark that made her recklessness endearing and infectious, and she was unfailingly loyal. And so, over the course of the past 10 years, she and Stephanie had remained fast friends. They even chose the same college, where they were now suitemates. Stephanie's parents had warned her not to be surprised if she and Chelsea went their separate ways at IU. But here they were in New York City, spring break of their freshman year, as tight as ever. Until this final night of the trip, Chelsea had more or less kept her most impulsive ways in check. At Stephanie's insistence, they had hit the Metropolitan Museum of Art, MoMA, and the Guggenheim. Jordan, who lived down the hall from them at school, hung on to all of the admission buttons for the scrapbook she promised she'd be assembling back home. They also made a point of seeing a different neighborhood every day. Upper East Side, Upper West Side, Midtown, the Village, Soho, even Chinatown. By the third day of their trip, they were relying on subways instead of taxis, and by the fifth, a stranger stopped them on the street for directions. But on this night, their last in Manhattan, Stephanie sensed that Chelsea's inner wild child was determined to come out and play. It started with the slutty outfit, then continued at the dive Italian restaurant. All the attention from the guys at the bar hadn't stopped Chelsea from flirting with some other men on her way to their table, fabricating a farcical autobiography the way she always did in these situations. If it had been up to Stephanie, they would have turned in early after dinner, happily sated with pasta and gelato, but Jordan agreed with Chelsea that their last hours in Manhattan should not be squandered. They wound their way through Little Italy into Nolita, across Soho, and up the West Village into the meatpacking district. Jordan insisted they hit a club called Pulse, because according to Us Weekly, Jared Leto had celebrated his birthday there 3 weeks earlier. Thanks once again to their fake Indiana driver's licenses and Chelsea's megawatt smile, they had made it past the red velvet rope and through the club's heavy wooden double doors. Stephanie had to admit they had entered 50,000 square feet of nightlife paradise. The DJ worked from an elevated booth surrounded by stage-like platforms. Cameras projected the dancers' images throughout the club in staccato sync with the music.